Hey, listen to me now. I'm gonna come on here and tell you now. Do not mention God publicly until you are living for God purely privately. Because when you mention God publicly, you invite spiritual warfare. The adversary does not want to lose. So if you know you're not prayed up and strong enough to win those spiritual battles day in and day out, the ones that could expose you, the ones that could bring shame to the name of God, don't get stuck hollering about no grace, because the people watching you ain't giving you grace. God give you grace when it comes to your eternity, but lives is on the line and blood is on your hands if you go out here talking God, 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 and then you going and you sinning, and then you get exposed for that sin. Now you a fraud, and you done made God look like a fraud, and God will not be mocked. So listen, it's okay. Your salvation is between you and God. Ain't nobody making you say God name. Ain't nobody rushing you to say God name. Ain't nobody paying you to say God name. So God don't need you to be a false witness. God don't need you to testify if you ain't exemplify. So if your life ain't clean behind closed door, you know why I talk like I talk. You know why I walk like I walk. Cause I'm living it. You want to hear, I'm gonna tell you, when I'm not living it, if I go to getting into some pornography, if I go to cheating on my wife, if I go to trying to live a illegal, wrong kind of lifestyle, I got to be all the way right. I got to be right. See, what I mean is, I don't mean perfect. But see, it's a type of sin that can expose you, and because it involves other people. See, and then it's a type of sin that's between you and God, meaning don't nobody see it but you and him. Example, if you look and you lust in your heart, ain't nobody see that. It didn't affect nobody but you, and God saw it. It'll affect your spirit, but you ain't touch nobody. You ain't get into fornication or adulteration with nobody. So unless somebody is watching you, oogling, googling, goggle over another human being body, then you got to deal, God gonna deal with you. But see, when you going and you doing fraud, when you in fornication, when you in adultery, when you doing things that involve other people, guess what? Eventually one of them people gonna expose you. They're gonna be like, oh, this person be out here speaking in tongues and be out here preaching and be out here talking about God all the time, but then be on their bike in fornication every other night. Guess what? Now your witness is dead. People ain't trying to hear, oh, nobody perfect. I'm still working in the Lord. Ain't nobody trying to hear that. They like, listen, if you're not perfect, which we know you're not perfect, but if you in that kind of sin, that it got to get brought to the forefront, to the light, we rather you shut up and don't mention God. We'd rather think you an atheist and you be a devout Christian between you and God. And then if somebody asks you about your business, then you could say, yes, I'm a Christian. I serve the Lord. Because Jesus said if you shame him before man, then he going to be shaming you before his father. What he really was talking about in that situation, he was kind of talking about like Peter, and he was always talking about like them people who they wanted to believe on him, but they didn't want nobody to know. And to talk about that it was people that worked in the synagogue, like they was high up, and they believed in Jesus. Like they was like, no, he the real deal. but they didn't speak on it. They didn't tell nobody because they didn't want to get kicked out the synagogue. That's who he talking about. But what the Bible tell you is don't be out here on the street corner praying and talking about God like the Pharisees. Because it's the same Pharisees that was out on the corner using the Lord's name. But then when his son came, they couldn't even recognize his son. When his son came, they put him to death. But yet they out talking about God all the time. And see, this is the thing. A lot of time when you saying God this and God this, look, listen. Don't use God for clout. Don't use God trying to look renewed. Don't try to use the name of God trying to look made over, trying to look whole, trying to look like a good person. Don't use the name of God for social security, meaning security amongst man, meaning respect and admiration amongst man. Do not mention God if you know you in fornication. Do not mention God if you know you in adultery. Do not mention God if you know you are in willing sin. You ain't in no tripping sin. You ain't tripping and falling. You swan diving into the sin. Shut up and do the work in the dark. Do the work behind closed doors. And then when you clean, when you've been renewed, now come out and be a witness. But you can't be a witness if you still a hostage of the devil. You can't be a witness for Christ if you still a prisoner of Satan. And that's right now is what I'm seeing is making a mockery of God. People who are not living right is using the name of God trying to look cute and classy and then getting exposed for their willing sin that they doing on a daily basis. And then the millions of people who was watching them and admiring them, now they like, well, darn. well, well, God ain't real. Cause look at this pastor. Look at this podcaster. Look at this pro athlete. Look at this celebrity. Look at this school teacher. Look at this police officer. Look at this doing all that. God told me to do this. God told me to say that. And then boom, in all kind of sin. Come on, man. Come on, man. Shut up. Ain't nobody ask you to talk. Shut up. If you ain't gonna live it, then work on it. Keep doing the work and be quiet. Then when you ready, when you'd have been trained, when you'd have been consecrated, when you'd have been renewed, when you clean, when you're not a hindrance to your brethren, then open your mouth to witness. Until then, just let your effort and your walk do the talking. Your mouth ain't got to bring no more attention to yourself than your personality and your character and your integrity. When you walking with Christ, people gonna feel that. They're gonna feel that. The way you treat them, the way you talk to them, when you in person with them, they gonna feel that. If you walking with the Lord while you doing that work, and then when you gain some strength and you resist the devil so he has fled. He might not flee forever now, but in that season where you resist the devil and he flee like the Bible say, then you go out and minister. And you do all the talking and you doing all the ministering because you blemish. You blemish free. You clean. And then if you go into spiritual warfare and you find yourself in sin, sit your behind down and shut up. And talk to God behind closed doors. And don't bring nobody else in that hole with you. Sit down and shut up. And do the work. Then go to running your mouth when you done got cleansed and renewed. And you can walk upright. Then you do you some talking. So that man cannot find fault. So that your good will not be evil spoken of. Stop making excuses for your sin and start making changes. Because every sin that we commit, we got to make a choice to commit it. Don't play with it.